So, a few quick announcements before we get started. As we've just demonstrated, this meeting is actually going to be live streamed. If you think this is a really cool idea, just let us know. Talk to us. If you.
Cool idea.
Excellent.
Thank you.
For everyone watching at home, this is going to be live streamed, and you do have the opportunity to provide input. Please, we are a college organization. Please keep your discourse appropriate. So announcements. We're going to be selling Valentine's next week on the 8th, 9th, 11th, and 12th, so all week except for Wednesday, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the SAU. There's going to be all sorts of different Valentines, mostly sci-fi, all cheesy. There's going to be some in black and white, some in color. They're going to be like dirt cheap, like maybe $1. So definitely, yeah, usually less. So come by and buy them, give them to your friends, give them to the people you don't like, because most of them will be, well, some of them will be bad. Well, mine will be bad. We're going to be having a Relay for Life team. We don't have a whole lot of information on it right now. We've actually got a representative at the meeting as we speak. So we will be getting back to you with more information on that in the email, as well as the announcements for next week. We are going to go see Deadpool. I'm really excited. This is going to be the best superhero movie that Ryan Reynolds has ever been in, not that he has ever been in any other superhero movie.
Man, that would have been great casting if somebody decided to put Ryan Reynolds.
He was the perfect Hal Jordan. They did everything wrong. All right, we're going to be going to see it on not this upcoming Friday, the Friday after. That is February 12th at 8 p.m. At the Henrietta Theater, right over here. If you are interested in being transported by Star, come meet at 6:45 on Friday in the SAU, like right by Nathan's. We are not offering tickets, not for this time. So we highly encourage you to go out and buy tickets as soon as possible. And if you are someone with vehicular transportation that would like to offer your services to the club, please let us know so we have an idea of how many trips we're going to have to make to the movie theater. And that is all I have, so I'm going to pass it over to the lovely Taylor Braun to talk about committees.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about committees. All right, so starting off with PR committee. PR committee is starting back up this semester. We had a good first meeting. Everybody who may be interested in PR committee, you should join. You should show up and help design a poster, or throw some ideas for communication for STAR. This week we are going to be refining the t-shirt design that was chosen last week. It's pretty cool, and it's not show specific, so it can be enjoyed by all of you and not just the Pacific Rim fans. I'm so sorry. Next, we have Starfest committee. So we did the Went meet, and Starfest committee, it seems that everybody who filled it out and is interested is available at 4 p.m. on Saturdays. I put in the reservations. They are not confirmed yet, so we don't have a place. But that will be TBA, so if you want to be on Starfest committee, help us run Starfest, which is a great event that we do later on this semester. You should look out for that on the Slack and the Facebook. Also, you can follow anything having to do with Starfest, not if you're just interested in the committee, but if you wonder what Starfest is or you want to go to it. You can follow it on Facebook, which is RIT Starfest. You can follow it on Google+, which is RIT Starfest. You can follow it on Twitter, which is RIT Starfest. Nice. Also, book club is reading up to Chapter 5 in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Right, guys? Yeah. Is that right? Cool. That's what I had.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, sadly, Jenny cannot be here. She's actually at the Relay for Life meeting. And as some people might be aware, our engineer, Joe Marcella, is also not here. He's actually off fighting the 8 robot masters to save someone. I don't know. Probably for everlasting peace. For everlasting peace. He might, I don't know, he might watch another fish movie.
Fighting Flash Woman.
All right, and with all the announcements out of the way, I'm now going to hand it over to our presenter of the day, Mr. Zachary Yarrow. Woo!
Hi. before I start, because there's going to be the momentary switching in the slideshow. And while that happens, there is, as many of you might have seen coming in, there is the brownie representation of one of the most popular androids in pop culture today, the Google Android bug droid, made out of brownies. Feel free to help yourself during the transition. Apologies to the web viewers. There aren't knives, just sort of grab a piece. It's brownie. Just grab a piece. There are napkins there, you can take some. For the people watching on the live stream, I'm sorry, we don't yet have the technology to deliver you brownies. However, while they're doing that, a note for the people on the live stream, since I'm going to be walking in front of here, if you feel like you want to be able to see the slides in a separate window, if you go to the RIT Star Club page, it's listed as Spacetime Adventures at RIT on Facebook or Google+, and go to the event for week 2, The Droids Among Us. There is a link to where you can see the Google Slides presentation that's going to be up here.
Wow, technology is amazing.
Are these the droids you're looking for?
That's entirely up to you. I don't know what droids you're looking for. This wasn't exactly the droid I was looking for, but it's a pretty good one.
The droid I was looking for is the...
The Motorola droid was the droid I was looking for, but they kind of killed that line. All I want is a Droid 5.
Droid 5.
They started working on one. There were leaked pictures. It was going to have wireless charging and a really nice looking keyboard.
Oh, keyboard.
Like the Droid Force keyboard, but without the wonky corners. It could have been great.
Things and protecting fish.
All right, I'm going to give a quick round in another 2 minutes. Sorry for the people waiting on the stream. That's John. Hi, John. Okay, that's so fast and slide. I mean, what? I can see anything. There's just like a blur here. Oh, if you haven't watched the CW, The Flash, it looks just like that.
Yeah. Except
All right.
for not as good CG.
All right, now that most people are settled, I'm going to get started. First off, fair warning, there might be a few spoilers, primarily for things that feature a lot of androids, Battlestar Galactica, iRobot, Star Trek, and so on.
The movie or the book? I wrote on.
Yes.
The movie.
The movie and the book, just things that feel androids or other robots. The android-related parts, at least, might be spoiled. In the case of like TV shows, I've tried to not show anything past the first season that's spoilery, but in a few cases, talking about the android parts requires talking about major plot points. If there's something that I know a lot of people are, or a fair number of people here are actively playing or watching, such as the Zero Escape series, I've just avoided that, but if it's something I haven't heard a lot of talk about, there's a few spoilers. But the focus is on the androids. The androids just happen to be connected to plot points. I didn't just go, you know what, for an androids mission, I'm going to spoil all of Battlestar Galactica. Here's who's Asylum. Okay, so let's talk about androids. So what is an android? Well, a lot of people would say it's this. It's an open source operating system. No. We're talking about androids being defined as a robot with a human appearance. So it kind of makes sense if we're going to talk about androids, we're going to have to talk a bit about robotics. The one thing we definitely know about androids from sci-fi, the one thing they all pretty much all agree on is androids are coming. Sooner or later, we're going to have robots that resemble humans, that can act like humans, that can talk like humans, and in some cases that are virtually indistinguishable from humans unless you're looking really, really closely. And in some cases that means so closely that if it were a human and you pick the wrong one, you've killed the human by the time you can figure out it's not an android. So they get really, really similar. So what separates an android from a human? Well, arguably nothing. Computers effectively take in inputs, process them, and respond with outputs. And you could argue the same thing is done with humans. These things are clearly not human, but they are still, this thing goes, I've been hit with a ball, and like a human, it gets back up and keeps going. Androids are traditionally, they're man-made, they're made from artificial materials, inorganic materials, they're manufactured, and that's generally what differentiates them from organic humans. Although there's plenty of works of sci-fi where they mix the two and then you get into cyborgs, which we can talk about later if you want to talk about it. So then the question is, how do they become more human? It's kind of interesting that, so if you've been with book club since the end of last semester, we recently read I, Robot, and it's kind of interesting that Asimov was a little bit wrong about the order in which the technologies needed to create androids would be perfected. He didn't think that, for instance, the sorts of speech recognition and speech synthesis that we have today would come about before we had more advanced artificial intelligence than we have right now. And really, but he was sort of right to assume that androids would come in steps, that the sort of Zoom-type android that we see in something like Star Trek, where it is basically, for all intents and purposes, a human in terms of its ability to, for instance, work on a starship. That comes about because of a bunch of things coming together. Things like biped mobility, which you can see experiments here. Things like natural language processing, the ability to, tell what someone is asking for, and things like text-to-speech, which right now, the best that we have in text-to-speech is most convincing when it's pretending to be a human, pretending to be a computer. Cortana on Windows 10 sounds really good because it's not trying to sound like a human, it's trying to sound like the human voice actors who is trying to sound like a computer. And it does that really well. But when you try to get voice synthesis to sound convincingly human, it doesn't always make the cut. All right, so now let's talk about humans. Humans respond to, yeah? What? Okay, sorry, we had a question. Humans respond to androids in different ways. And often the initial response is to reject them. Humans don't like androids, and this can be for a number of reasons. A big one is something called the uncanny valley, which shows up a lot in like CG, but it can exist in real world things as well. It's when something is almost realistic but not quite, and it just feels wrong. So when you have, the human face versus the android face, these are called geminoids. It looks almost human, but something's off. And people find that really disturbing. They would rather something be really cartoony or perfectly realistic, but when it's almost but not quite there, you're inclined to reject it. There are also, here's another example of, it looks human and then suddenly it doesn't. This is from the TV series Almost Human, which was, I think, not renewed after its first season, but it was a few years ago. And then they have these police droids who are designed to look human in all the parts you see outside the uniform, and then they kind of cut corners on the technology for everything else. So whenever you see one without its uniform, it's a little bit off-putting just because it looks human and then suddenly it isn't. Yeah, John.
I just wanted to comment on how tragic it was that Almost Human got cut short. It was a fantastic show.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it didn't quite pick up a huge following, so I understand why they canceled it. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. One of the main stars is Carl Urban, who you might know as being Dr. McCoy in the Star Trek reboot. Anyway, another big reason humans are inclined to be afraid of androids is sci-fi says they're often scary and evil. And based on these fictional stories, people get worried. Even the I, Robot movie starts off by presenting this world in which androids have been accepted, and then they turn evil. It's such a common trope in sci-fi. It's understandable that people would be a bit nervous. But also, sometimes we're afraid that androids might end up being too much like us. This is designed to look like the movie War Games. It's not. It's from a video game called DEF CON, which is very much inspired by the movie War Games. In War Games, a computer is designed to simulate global thermonuclear war and tricks people into thinking it's actually happening. But DEF CON is basically succeeded because the game developers realized, hey, humans like to simulate blowing each other up themselves. They don't just want to watch a computer do it. And history says humans like actually blowing each other up. And it's kind of scary to think that, you know, a robot could kill people. Is a robot going to kill people because it has decided itself it wants to kill people, or because we've made it human enough that it has gotten human homicidal impulses? And honestly, I think it's more likely that a human will make a robot kill someone before the robot decides to. More on that later. First, I want to touch on, because I've talked a bit about why we reject robots, and I wanted to switch gears for a moment to talk about how robots can be accepted. And a big popular one in sci-fi is make them non-threatening. Make them round and squishy and friendly, and in the words of Baymax, Tadashi and Baymax, give them a huggable, non-threatening design. The other thing, though, is this makes them less human. You would never mistake the Hitchhiker's Guide movie version of Marvin or Baymax for a human. They're distinctly cartoony and on the far side of the uncanny valley. They're far away from the uncanny valley. That also goes for, you know, robots like Chibi Robo, for instance. Very far from the uncanny valley, and so we can think they're cute, and in the case of Chibi Robo, small. And so they look less threatening, they look less like us, we're less afraid of them. Yeah?
What about R2D2? R2 is like to have a humanoid structure. They're still sort of endearing in their own way.
R2D2 being enduring in his own way, yes, I agree, and I think that is partially due to his not being human. There's plenty of other reasons. I'm talking more about like how a humanoid robot can be less threatening while still being humanoid. Because yeah, there are a lot of robots even today that look more or less threatening without being humanoid at all because of their design. So, for instance, I can't remember the name of it, but there's this thing. It's supposed to be basically like a household companion robot that sits there, and the main head is just a big sphere with a screen, and it's all rounded and friendly. And the sorts of things that people see as more scary, like drones, tend to be more angular and have sharp bits that you could hurt yourself with. What?
They also can have missiles.
Well, yes, they can also have missiles, but I'm saying even ones that you might own outside the military. But yes, the ones with missiles are scary. Anyway, another way to make robots less threatening is make them basically a humanish equivalent to less human robots. So in the case of iRobot, at the start, to sort of establish how the world views androids at that time, we have a FedEx robot. It is basically the robot equivalent of an Amazon Prime drone, but it adds a human touch. It's, you know, delivers your package personally and greets you and is polite to you and, you know, thanks you. Whereas this thing just sort of drops the package and leaves, and hopefully doesn't get shot down. And the same with Chibi Robo. Chibi Robo is not more efficient necessarily than, say, a Roomba. But it looks like a little tiny person who's scrubbing your floor, and that's really cute. And again, it's like adding human-like friendly speech to an automated store terminal. The idea of adding a human touch to something that's inherently automated rather than making something automated trying to fully be human. And again, it's that sort of, we know it's not human. It's got that little bit of friendliness in it, but we know it's not human and it doesn't make us uncomfortable. Yeah?
I mean, Chibi Robo, at the end of the day, was basically more of a marriage counselor than like a cleaning.
Chibi, yes, in the original Chibi Robo, you could say Chibi Robo was a bit of a marriage counselor, but across the games, maybe less counting Ziplash, because that's very much a different sort of game. Chibi Robo's function is, Chibi Robo's general function is make people happy through cleaning stuff and completing tasks, doing things for people that they want done, but they don't have the time or they don't have the motivation to do themselves. And having it be a little friendly-looking robot rather than, one of these things adds to the cuteness factor, and it's a bit less scary if you have like this cute little thing, in the case of Chibi Robo Photo Finder for the 3DS. It's a lot cuter if you have like a robot going around taking pictures of things. Whereas if this thing is going around taking pictures of things for someone, you think it's like creepy NSA surveillance drone. If this thing is going around taking pictures of things, you're like, that is adorable.
Just get a pair of googly.
Yeah, put a pair of googly eyes on the surveillance drone. Go work at the NSA's PR division, because it's better than anything they've tried so far.
I'm sure that'd be great for the lab.
I don't know if they have a PR division. They have a Twitter. I assume someone runs it. Whether that person knows anything about social media marketing, I don't know. All right. So the other way that robots could be accepted is by blending in so well that we don't realize they're robots. This works really well if you're making a TV series or a movie, because then you don't need to spend as much on makeup and VFX. But yeah, all of these characters are robots. We've got Dorian from Almost Human. We've got Boomer from New PSG. We've got the androids 16, 17, and 18 from DBZ.
I'm fairly sure 17 and 18 are actually cyborgs.
They were converted from
yeah.
androids from humans.
Okay, technically cyborgs. Good point. Arguably, yeah, the Terminator
But
is
every other
as well.
android from Red Ribbon is android. So
Yeah.
kinds of the different typicals that we get. Kind of big
Okay,
family.
yes, Mario?
Speaking of which, Zachary, what's the difference between an android and a cyborg?
Generally, androids are considered to be the completely artificial ones, and cyborgs are part artificial, part organic. Whether that means someone who perpetually has a Bluetooth thing in his or her ear is a cyborg is up to you. But yeah, the replicants in Blade Runner, arguably the Terminators, although some of them are, more cyborg than android. The point is, they blend in, and to the average human, you don't know that there are androids among you. And so you kind of accept them the way you accept every other human, which can be kind of scary, because what if they're not friendly? That guy's especially scary because he looks like an android you learn to trust. This person was a valued member of your crew and suddenly shoots you. This person looked like your wife and suddenly she stabs you. And so yeah, a lot of people are concerned about that. What happens if robots blend into humans and then kill people? A robot could kill people. And to that I say, a person could kill people. I think it's unlikely, as I said before, that a robot will turn on us. I think the first robot to kill a human will do so not because it glitched and turned like turned into a mass murderer, but because it like glitched and this giant mass of metal fell over on someone. Or it glitched and like, you know, the arm motor went out of control and hit someone too hard in a vital organ.
Or
Yeah.
even told it to kill someone.
Getting that, yeah?
I mean, depending on your definition of Android, vending machines already kill an embarrassing number of people.
Vending machines do kill an embarrassing number of people. I'm not sure I've seen an Android vending machine kill people, but I guarantee you one day there will be an Android vending machine, because, you know, adding that human touch. A human will try to steal something from that Android vending machine and accidentally knock the Android on top of them, and some news story will claim that an Android has murdered a human. In much the way that we have Google self-driving, people write about Google self-driving cars getting into accidents, despite the fact they're getting into accidents while humans are behind the wheel. They just happen to have the self-driving tech as well. It's not the car's fault, it's the fault of the human driver. But people are still going to write articles. So yeah, even if it's the human's fault, they're going to blame the Android initially. So yeah, the first way an Android is going to kill a human is because something glitched and it was stupid. It was a stupid mistake in programming or in mechanical design. The next way will be because a human told it to. Because a human wanted to kill someone and did it with an Android. If you want to talk more about the ethics of this, I highly recommend looking into the works of the Proto-Man. For those of you who weren't here when we talked about that last year, it does a fair bit about if you build a robot and someone else uses it to kill a third person, who is to blame for that? Is it the robot's fault because the robot committed murder, the person who told the robot to because he is the human controlling the artificial intelligence, or is it the maker of the robot because he built it in the first place? Anyway, and as I said earlier, the next way robots will kill people is when they are human enough that there can be robots who have human murderous impulses. And effectively, in their mimicking humans, mimic humans' abilities to commit murder. After that, we might get to robot uprisings. But I think that's a lot further off than robots who kill people because of humans. So really, then, what if we are focusing on the wrong issue here? I'm not saying we necessarily are, but I think this is an interesting thing to bring up. What if the concern should not be what happens when we have robots in society just at all? What if it's more a matter of when we have enough robots in society? And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Jean-Luc for a moment to give his thoughts on the matter.
Would you like Commander Baker? I don't know it well enough to like or dislike, but you admire him. It is an extraordinary piece of engineering programming. Yes, you have said that. Commander, you devoted your life to the study of cybernetics in general. Yes. And Commander Baker in particular. Yes. And now you propose to dismantle it so that I can learn from it and construct more. However, as many as are needed, hundreds, thousands if necessary, there's no limit. A single data, and forgive me, Commander, is a curiosity. A wonder even of thousands of data. That's becoming a race. And we've been judged by how we treat that race. Now tell me, Commander, what is data? I don't understand. What is he? A machine! Is he? Are you sure? Yes! You see, you've met two of every criteria of ascension, so what do we need to learn? Consciousness, and even the smallest degree. What is he then? I don't know. Do you? Do you? Do you? Well, that's the question you have to ask.
So this picture is not just here for the sake of the play on words. We see this as being a big pile of machines. They're you know, a bunch of different smartphones. They're actually not all Android phones. There's an iPhone or two in there. There's, I think, even some Blackberries maybe. But we see this as a pile of machines. We don't see this as a race, even though there are, you know, in this pile more of these entities than there are humans in this room. We wrote a joke in a game I made with some friends in high school. We had a level where you're fighting paperclips and had the little quote, "There are more paperclips in the world than humans, so you better watch your back." So treating androids as a race is clearly not just a matter of how many robots are there. So I guess what is the criteria? Is it a matter of consciousness? You know, is it that the androids need to be sufficiently intelligent? Does it not matter the form they take? Is that pile of machines is sufficiently conscious? For those who don't know, this is a shot from the movie Her. If you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend it if you're interested in having an existential crisis about artificial intelligence. Or is it a matter of just looking human enough? Ex Machina, another good movie to watch if you are interested in having thoughts presented to you about robots. Is it a matter of there being a certain number of them? Or is it maybe a matter of there being not just a lot of the same thing, but a couple that are slightly different? Does there need to be a certain amount of differentiation in the number of intelligent beings? And then also, if the androids become a race, what determines how we may treat them? Do they need to see themselves as part of a group? What if there are different models of androids? Are androids then, are they technically more of a species, with the NS4 and the NS5 being different races? In this case, in the case of the iRobot movie, there's effectively racism within androids, that the NS5 see themselves as superior to the NS4 and see themselves as justified in attacking and often killing, or if you prefer, dismantling as far as they see it, inferior NS4s. Yeah?
Disassembling.
I said disassembling.
No, you said dismantling.
Oh, sorry.
Disassembling.
Sorry, disassembling. Smashing and breaking into pieces. Yes?
This was basically the premise for the movie Robots.
I haven't, the movie, oh, like the animated one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Blue Sky movie with Robo Williams.
Yes. Yeah, it kind of was. I totally forgot about that movie when I was making this, but yeah. that also did focus on that. Although it was partially, I think it was a bit less racism and more like class differences.
Yeah.
But similar ideas
Yeah.
of different subgroups within robots that can fight amongst themselves. The answer obviously is we can't say for sure, which I know is a bit of a cop-out answer. But then again, this is largely to put forth a lot of ideas that will hopefully spark discussion. I think it's, though, very interesting to think about when we get humanoid androids, they're not going to come out of nowhere. They're going to be the culmination of research in different areas. It's going to be AI and NLP, natural language processing, text-to-speech, mobility, realistic human parts, and so on, all coming together to make the first androids, and then further iterating on those until we get something like Commander Data, or the final form of Ava in Ex Machina, or possibly something like Chappie. There will, of course, be backlash, because even some of those who did keep up with the steps along, there's of course going to be the people who didn't follow these steps and who aren't following all the tech blogs to see how these are advancing the way I might obsessively do. And so they're suddenly going to see this and be startled. But even the people who follow the steps are going to oppose when it becomes too human. And eventually, intelligent robots may come far enough that they meet the criteria for sentience. And in my opinion, at that point, they need to be treated as sentient beings, because I would argue humans are incredibly advanced organic computers, and if some other form some other form of computer becomes advanced enough that it is indistinguishable from a human, then it deserves to be treated as a sentient being. Kind of like in, not a perfect analogy, but in Star Trek when they discover non-carbon based life, it's still life. It's just not life as we know it. By the time that happens, though, I think people will be more comfortable because it will happen gradually, and more time is going to be spent on accepting robots that are almost but not quite human, that when they're fully human, people will be used to it. There will be opposition. There's no doubt about that. But to that, I sort of say there has, throughout history, been opposition to treating subgroups of humans, sentient beings who are not artificial, who are members of the same species, as people, as equal sentient beings. So I think when the time, this is just my opinion, but I think when the time comes to that we need to deal with that with beings made out of steel and silicon rather than organic material, I think history is going to repeat it. And one day, droids will walk among us. So that's the end of my presentation. Yeah, and so now we have a little over an hour, so I try to leave a lot of room because this discussion went on for a long time 2 years ago when we ran an Android mission. So I want to leave plenty of time for what you guys want to talk about. I'm happy to keep talking about what I put forth here, and I'm also happy to branch out into other Android-related topics, because I know it's been a while. Not everyone discussed what we discussed there, and I'm happy to revisit anything or discuss anything new. And so I will just start there and go across. Yeah.
The thing I want to talk about is a spoiler for a game that recently came out. Although I don't know. It's Xenoblade X. Does anyone?
Don't spoil it, please.
Yeah. No. I also haven't played it. My flatmate has it, but I still haven't. I haven't finished the first Xenoblade Chronicles because I was borrowing it from someone else.
You don't need to.
Yeah, but I want to.
But don't. Just play X.
I'll get to it at some point, but yeah, sorry. It's recent enough, I think, avoiding spoilers is
That's
fair.
okay, I won't say it.
Yeah.
Two things. One, with the presentation that you gave, the stuff you were talking about like when droids will walk among us, that kind of thing. I don't really think it'll be like a single. It won't really be a single moment. It'll be like a gradient. Like we've already demonstrated that we're definitely well on the way to creating pseudo-sentient, if not fully sentient robots, maybe. But when and if it happens, then I think that we'll have slowly built up to it to the point where it will sort of come to terms with it, or if we don't, then we'll sort of look back on it after it's already been attempted being written. Like, I don't think any company that wants to have like a positive thing from this would just jump right into the whole investing team as possible. They would sort of build up to it with basically what we're doing now.
I think people. So if this wasn't clear, what I was saying before, I do agree it's going to be a gradual build up to having a fully human-looking robot. But I think different groups are going to come at it from different directions, because I absolutely think there will be groups that come at it from the angle of make it look human even if it doesn't function human enough. And on the other side, there are going to be groups doing like what Google is doing right now. They're not trying to build an Android. They're trying to effectively build the Star Trek computer, something that can respond to what you want like a human would, but that has no self and that has no physical form. And then you have sort of a step closer with something like Siri or Cortana, where they've decided what its personality is, and try to make it more human. And on the other side, you have things where they look human, but they are very clearly not, and they have they're very limited in what inputs they can take. So I don't think it'll just be a build-up. I think it'll be different people coming at it from different directions. And it's almost like I didn't design this slide accidentally. I think it's going to be different groups pushing from different directions, all heading towards something in the middle. And it's going to, and maybe, you know, the Watson team will get there on its own by developing Watson enough and then saying, let's give it a physical form. Or maybe the people working on artificial faces will say, we've gotten this to look realistic enough, now let's start working on AI. But I think it's very likely it'll be a bunch of these things coming together, people taking the text-to-speech stuff that companies like Google and Microsoft are doing, combined with the huge knowledge, the ability to search through knowledge that Google and IBM are doing, combined with all the companies working on creating realistic human features, combined with companies like Boston Dynamics that are working on mobility. And that's how it's going to get there. So it's not just a gradual moving forward in technology, it's a gradual progress on many different fronts coming together. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the second thing I wanted to say was just a quick shout out to my current favorite Android right now and most fabulous that ever did, and that is on from Undertale.
Haven't started playing Undertale. I'm sorry, I don't get that reference.
They found.
You know they go.
I'm first from
Cyborg.
Oh, right.
Medicine is alright, his creators for
No,
this.
Yeah, you're right. I messed up.
In a few weeks, I will have had time to play Undertale, and then I will appreciate your reference. I'm sorry I don't appreciate it right now. I'm sure other people do. Yeah.
Okay. I cannot 100% guarantee the validity of this. I heard it on a podcast. I never followed up on it, but they don't really joke around. So there's apparently, and just saying the title, you'll probably get interested and scared at the same time. A thing called a robo-waifu. That is a technology band that you sync with your smart devices, and your waifu will you can ask them to turn on the oven, to turn the lights on and off, and they will respond in kind as they would put it, waifu.
That was the first part of that conversation. I don't think I really want to know what just happened.
Okay. We're talking about a company has made a thing they call the robo waifu. You said?
I don't know if that's the exact name, but that's
okay.
Is it like a big cylindrical thing with the holographic?
Wait, she's saying, is it the cylindrical thing with some sort of holographic display? She was asking.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't personally seen this. It sounds like what I was saying earlier about adding a sort of human touch to otherwise inhuman things. That's effectively taking the same sorts of home automation things that Google is trying to do with Nest and Weave, that Apple is trying to do with HomeKit. Microsoft has its own initiative. I don't know what. I think they're just sticking with Internet of Things instead of giving it a friendlier name. But it sounds like they're trying to take that and add the sort of human side of, well, if the primary customer is a heterosexual man, and who else is going to be in the house to turn on the oven or change the lighting or whatever, it would be the person's wife. Okay, we'll make it a robot wife. I can understand how they got there. I'm not sure I see that turning into like a full Android, but I mean, I definitely see the idea of marrying a robot happening probably sooner than robots are developed enough to be someone you could have a full romantic relationship with. But I don't think that's quite what that particular product was designed for.
This as like a step, as another step into what you were talking about, like all these different things. Like,
yeah,
you have this thing. It's like a smart home, but it's like got personality to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So like that's how I'm seeing it. Like this will probably get a bunch of packs, and you can probably get DLC or Mega Man will be all and everything. Like,
oh yeah, no, definitely. Home automation is getting a lot bigger. Like it was just it was effectively just tech demos a few years ago, and now it's finally more and more home automation products are becoming available to consumers, and they're definitely going to start getting personalities. You can bet Apple is going to try to integrate Siri into HomeKit at some point. We're effectively, I don't know how many people here watch Eureka, but the smart house in there, we're pretty close to that. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting pretty close.
I love mine be like mom.
But hopefully we get more Sarah and less of the military home automation system that it was built on top of. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but hey, sometimes you've got a deadline tomorrow and you just need to hack some code together. All right. Anything else? Yeah.
I remember we talked a lot last time about stuff like consent for androids who we understand our life more or less in the same way that Captain Picard, pointed out that we can't really say. But as far as we know, if there was an android that was as living as possible, except for that they were artificial, where is the line of them having their own agency, them having their own free will, them being allowed to make their own choices for their own lives, and how does that also correspond with like what their purpose was, what was the point of creating them? Because I assume that we don't just be like, I think there should be another life form, I think there should be another person in the world right now, and I'm going to make one and then just not have the reason for it. So what is
I mean, that happens occasionally with humans.
Yeah.
Some people kind of already. What's the first life? You pass butter.
I mean, but if you think about it, like Rick and Morty, given the type of show it is, sorry, I see you. I'll get you in a minute. Rick and Morty, given the type of show it is, the robot, the joke with the robot passes butter is very much in the style of the show. But isn't that effectively what Chibi Robo is? Chibi Robo's job, or the Chibi Robo model, because Citrosoft keeps making a new model so that they can keep making more games. So Nintendo can make more games. But the Chibi Robo model in the original Chibi Robo is designed to clean houses. That's what it does. It can do other things, and it ends up wrapped up in this whole story, and that's why the game is so good. But it's a robot whose purpose is to be small and clean houses and do so while being small enough that it's not in your way. And that it's power efficient. But they framed it in a different way. I mean, it's largely just marketing by Citrosoft in-game and Nintendo out-of-game. That's not seen as horribly depressing. That all he does, like, if you play the game, you spend a fair amount of time just like picking up cookie crumbs and scrubbing floors. It's not like inherently fulfilling. It's only because it's part of a larger narrative that it's any fun. But you would imagine there are, millions of other Chibi Robo units being sold to houses that are less interesting, and thus they didn't make games about them. And all those Chibi Robo units do is clean houses forever, until eventually they stop plugging in the Chibi house and the Chibi Robo deactivates.
I would like to bring up, in Stargate Atlantis, it's been out long enough, I think the spoiler pass. There is a robot that, though it was created for a specific purpose, and by fulfilling that purpose, it had full sentience, it was as intelligent as a human, had the full range of emotions as a human, but it understood that it was created for a purpose, and even though that purpose resulted in its destruction, it was still happy to complete that purpose. Is that still killing the robot because you programmed it to do that?
I mean,
I conjecture that it's not, that the purpose of the robot is to die.
I feel like this is, because I heard that when we were there, I feel like this is similar to a question posed and not answered in the Meeseeks episode of Rick and Morty.
We'll be talking about that.
Ryan, do you want me to wait and let you address that in 2 weeks when we talk about cartoons aimed at adults?
I mean, if you want to get into it, that's fine. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that we're going to be talking about when I run a mission about science fiction cartoons aimed at adults.
Okay. Since that's going to come up, I just want to get back to Tharlo, and then I'll get to you, Rebecca. Tharlo, I saw your hand up.
I was going to say Butterbot kind of exists to play in real life now, because Reddit decided to make a script on our Rick and Morty. I forget what the exact thing is, but like the script looks for a certain comment, and it finds a certain comment and posts a photo of the Butterbot. So it does, and it just says, "Here you go, master."
I mean, so see the thing about Butterbot, the reason Butterbot is able to be presented in such a sad frame is we're given the impression that Butterbot has like full human intelligence, but is trapped in a mechanical body that is designed exclusively for passing butter across a table, and is explicitly told the only thing it will ever be asked to do is pass butter across a table. We have robots that move food today. I'm sure some of you have seen the video on YouTube of the pathetic ketchup bot that rolls across the table, squeezes a ketchup bottle onto a hamburger, turns, and then drives down a line of hot dogs, squirting ketchup on each one. If you haven't seen it, look it up later, or if we have time at the end of the mission, I can pull it up because it's funny. Because even though it is given no human traits, you just feel like it's trying so hard.
Is there a vein of the Cheeto bot that like leans up and then ends up smacking person in the face?
I haven't seen that, but it's similar level of trying but not quite succeeding.
No,
but if Butterbot were something like that, where it's just programmed to do that, it can't talk, it has just enough voice recognition to understand the words "pass the butter," the way my phone right now is set to only listen for the words "OK Google," not the full English language, that wouldn't be as sad. But Butterbot can talk with you, but you can hold a conversation with Butterbot, and yet it is limited to only passing butter for the rest of its life. Rebecca.
I was just going to say, speaking of Rick and Morty, Butterbot poses an interesting philosophical debate in the thing of Rick and Morty, because the whole point of Rick and Morty is, nobody exists on purpose, no one belongs anywhere, and everybody's going to die, right?
Yeah.
And it would be argued that Butterbot is the opposite of those things, because he exists for a singular purpose, to have butter, he belongs at the dinner table, and presumably may never die.
Wow, that was deeper than any other comment I've ever heard about Rick and Morty, and you're not wrong.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, I see you, but there were hands over here, so I'm going to go down this road.
Ryan's been holding his hand longer.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry. So yeah, Ryan, go ahead, and then I'll go down the road.
Talking about kind of like androids and purpose and how we should feel about them. I think of the Christmas special of Black Mirror. If anyone's watched it, I don't know. It's not really. It's a plot device, but it's not really a spoiler.
It's one episode.
Yeah, what they do is they take essentially a copy of your personality, put it into a tiny module that runs your house. That way, it always knows what you like because it is essentially you. But they also, stop it. It is unable to do anything other than run your house.
But they give it the perception of having a body just so that it can figure out, because when it's initially turned on, the person thinks she's still herself and she's freaking out because she doesn't have a body. So they give her a simulated body in a simulated room with a simulated control panel. The control panel doesn't do anything. Just by pressing any button, she's already thinking, oh, I like my toast toasted for 2 minutes. And the button is purely symbolic. But it's also seen as kind of cruel that you're giving this simulated person the feeling of having a body.
I love that show so much. It's so good.
Black Mirror is a really good show if you want to see awful things that could realistically happen in the near future. Except for episode 1, because that already pretty much happened. All right, what were the questions?
Just still on the whole androids and purpose thing. Like, do you think that it feels better to know that you have a set purpose and to know that you don't have the freedom to screw up what you were meant to do than to live this nebulous human existence where you have to make a reason yourself to be someplace, or you just are and your existence is already, as legitimate as it can be, and you have to kind of straddle that line between I exist and I need to do something with myself? Like, do you think it would be horrifying or comforting to not have that situation? To know that there are beings that are made for one purpose and you're one of those beings and you just do the best you can?
I think that's a really interesting discussion
It's like
point.
a core debate of all of Rick and Morty.
I feel-
Importantly in the hybrid episode.
Yeah, that is like thinking about it. That's visited a lot in Rick and Morty, and conveniently ignored in a lot of sci-fi. And I also feel like it'd be something interesting for, I don't know if anyone else here does. This is going to sound completely unrelated to Star, but if anyone else here studies user experience design, that would be a really interesting thing to talk about with other UX designers, because there's a big focus there on everything is intentional. You design, when the person opens my app with this goal, how are they going to do it? When they open it with this goal, how are they going to do it? No one ever, it's becoming so much less common these days for anyone to design an app just here, it has this function, and
Figure it out.
and maybe people will do stuff with it. It's always, this is the user's goal, and here's how they get there. And I feel like that's the opposite is going to happen with androids. They're going to start off with the like Butterbot. It's a robot that does a thing. It does this thing, and over time they're going to expand into general purpose. It can do what a human can do, or whatever it wants. What?
They're going to make a robot that can carry things for you. Eventually that robot will carry things that do things for you.
Well, isn't there already one of those, that I think it's been around for a while, one of those like smaller robot things, that like the one that everyone was having with this huge scandal about it, was like suddenly gave himself awareness for like 5 seconds, like those tiny little cute things that like people write
Furbies?
those? Yeah, what?
Furbies?
No!
Move them from orbit.
That was the only thing I can think of people posting about, like a robot that definitely wasn't self-aware, but people posting that they were self-aware.
Where like they played like a dummy test thing with 3 of them, where they told the robots that like if they're gonna give them a dummy pill, or they won't be able to talk, right? And then they don't do it for
I thought you were talking about like a consumer robot that people thought was self-aware. Yeah.
No, like they did a test, and for a second it had to have awareness of it being itself as opposed to other of itself. Had to have an positive
and it was
awareness.
able to tell its reflection from another robot.
Yeah, which like that robot is like something that's just sort of an all-purpose thing that people write programs for and do stuff with and get it to do stuff. Like I saw someone write a program where it'll take a picture of something and then it'll draw a version of that on like a sticky note.
Oh, cool.
Or like one that plays tic-tac-toe.
Yeah. So that is not, I had forgotten about that. That is definitely a type of general purpose robot.
It's just sort of various programmers make things that it can do.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I
think the human fascination with androids stems from the fact that we are so singular in what we're able to do. Like, what a human can do can't be compared to any other living being on planet Earth, and we obviously haven't yet discovered space travel where we could potentially meet other life forms. So we create essentially what we want to be the pigs. They're smart in a sense. They are self-aware, but at the same time, we're also really afraid of them because when humans make androids, usually they're better. Even if it's for a singular purpose, they're better at that one thing. And then they get defensive, as all humans do. Humans don't like other humans. Even
I love humans.
no, they don't.
I love humans.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I think some humans like other humans. I think it's fair to say that humans have some sort of natural inclination for conflict.
Yeah. Humans like to think of themselves as superior. When they create this great thing that they subconsciously can tell would be better than them, they give limits, and that creates a whole fear of what happens when they're better than us. Well, are obviously going to attack us because they're better than us. What would we do?
That brings to mind that I was just, thinking with that brought to mind off the top of my head, that there's sort of almost a conflict of interest with humans often think about creating something that will outlast you.
Mm-hmm.
But often that's more meant like it's something that will be remembered after you. And as soon as people start talking about it will literally live, centuries longer than you, then suddenly people get weirded out by it, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't know if that was exactly the point you were making, but that was.
Not quite, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay, let's go across the back row. Yeah.
I'm gonna word this as vaguely as possible because every moment in this game is a gem. I'm gonna say 4 or 5 months ago, the game Soma came out.
Yes.
I'm being as vague as possible. It presents questions like similar to this in really unique ways, like really interesting, unique ways I hadn't seen before, and it's I can't speak too there. I stop myself now because I won't say anything.
I know.
So play that if you want to hate everything for a while. No, that's not true. But like it's just like it just makes you think about existence and whatnot.
No,
and for the love of God, stay after the credits. That is the strongest.
That game is definitely on my list. I know the feeling of the avoid spoilers because I would love to talk about Zero Escape 2: Virtue's Last Reward and how it talks about androids. But the android parts of the story are inherently intertwined with the main plot, and it's very difficult to talk about them apart from that. But if you want some interesting stuff about Android in the middle of something that talks about a lot of sci-fi stuff, it's got time travel, it's got parallel universes. Highly recommend that series.
There's the last thing I'll say.
Yeah, go ahead. You can raise your hand again.
But there's a decision, I won't say anything about it, that I'm going to say 50-60% into the game, that we could probably have a whole meeting on just 5 minutes of what happens. And just immerse yourself into that if you can, because that game did not get enough love for how amazingly well written it is. It's mostly, it's like sci-fi, like kind of horror.
It's by the people who made Amnesia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's on my list. It's not one of the ones I got in the last Steam sale, and I'm still working my way through those. Also, if you want to hate yourself, I thought if you want to hate everything, I thought you just need to learn about design. I could give a presentation 5 times as long as this about how people make door handles wrong.
Door handles. Oh my god, door handles.
Your presentation on why Stalkers is terrible. Like the building, not the school.
Yes, the building is Lowenthal, the school is Stalkers. I could go all day on the design of that building.
Super fun fact, all that wood paneling didn't used to be there. It used to be a concrete prison.
What do you mean used to be?
The gene policy center is slightly off.
The Gene Policy Center is 12 degrees off from the main campus grid. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Rotating it on the map makes me feel slightly better, but really they need to rotate the building. Who thought that was a good idea? We already have UC buildings facing every which way. The last thing we need is something closer to campus that's also off. I swear, if that new building, the new housing building they're building by Global Village had better be lined up with the rest of Global Village.
We're sorry, people watching on the internet. If you're not from RIT, this makes 0 sense.
If you're not from RIT, look up RIT on Google Maps. Notice how the middle of campus is on the grid, and then notice how a couple of buildings are not. Some of us obsess over that because we're weird.
Well,
Yes.
The entire school is that way. Many things. Hold my hand for a while. First thing is that Furby's ever gained sentience for all you.
Furby's gained sentience.
They're already sentient. Destroy them now.
I don't, if any of you are game designer new media, there is a Twitter account for IGN Furby. It went went down for a while, and then it came back and started. And someone posted, whoever, I don't know who runs the account. Maybe no one runs the account. It just posted a, "You thought you left me in Park Point to die." Just IGM Furby, it's a thing.
The second thing is that I agree with you when you said that like it's going to start off doing a single task and then become general purpose. Is that, as far as I can tell, is how every major technology we see on a daily basis started out and then became everything from telephones to computers?
Oh yeah, you can see everyone holding up the smartphones. This particular Android, this is so well named for this mission, or the iPhone, or even the BlackBerry. Yeah, email and cellular phones and web browsers were not all developed by one team.
There's a cool GIF on here that like your desk in the 1980s. You see, it goes from like the 1980s to like today.
Yeah, with everything going into the computer and then going into the phone. Yep.
And then I disagreed with like androids, like humans' fascination with androids because, what is it that you said? Humans are fascinated with androids because
we're alone.
Right.
Basically.
That's definitely one reason. I think it's just sort of like a natural progression towards like just one of many fantasy elements that humans like, because our collective imagination is pretty much infinite, so robots have got to fit somewhere in there. And then, I actually wanted to ask about one quick way why door handles were wrong, just out of curiosity.
Okay, so why door handles are wrong? My biggest complaint about door handles at RIT is in a lot of the labs, and I don't know about other buildings, but in the Golisano building, a lot of the labs have electronic locks. So whether the door opens or not is dependent on whether someone with swipe access has swiped in and entered the code to keep the door unlocked. But they have the sort of door handles that are the type that you grab and turn to open the door. And people, by the time they get to college, have interacted with those enough that they understand the horizontal door handle affordance turns if it's unlocked and doesn't turn if it's locked. So you'll get people generally say it's freshmen, but actually I've seen third years doing this, where they try the door handle, it doesn't open, and they're knocking on the door, or if there's a window to the lab, knocking on the window, asking if someone can open the door, and really all they had to do was push to open. The proper affordance would be a flat panel, which implies push to open, rather than something, or at least a handle that is unable to turn. So people don't think they're supposed to turn it. A lesser complaint I have about some doors, this isn't as much of a problem at RIT. They got it right in the Innovation Center. But oftentimes when people are making glass doors, you can see what's on the other side of the door. So they don't want to have the horizontal bar on the push side and the vertical handle on the pull side. So they'll go for a vertical handle on both sides, and it's nice and symmetrical when you look at the cross-section of the door. The problem is if because often also with glass doors, they try to minimize how visible the hinge is. So you come up to that door and you don't know whether it's a push door or a pull door, and if you see a door that has a glass door that has the same handle on both sides, watch it and compare it to a glass door that has the horizontal handle on one side and the vertical handle on the other. The one with the symmetrical handle will have more people who accidentally walk into the door thinking they can push it.
I just assumed they could open both ways if it's symmetrical on both sides.
That would make sense, but that's not the case. So back to androids.
Yeah, I had a
Very
thought.
flexible.
Someone ranging off hers, that how we're fascinated with androids because we're basically alone in the universe as we know it. And because and I just thought that what if we stumble upon an alien race similar to that of like maybe the Cybertronians, Transformers, you don't know, or the Geth, that they're completely machine-like, but they have sentience in the way that we have it. But like maybe in their history they had like organic life forms that made them, but they all died off, so that's all they remain. So how would we interpret what they are? Would we call them life, even though they were previously artificially created? But it's an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, well, I mean, you probably got from my presentation, once they're sufficiently advanced and clearly sentient, they kind of need to be treated that way.
But that was the whole problem with, I only know Star Trek because I haven't watched the entire the older series yet. But the whole problem with that is that Data, or at least from what they've seen of him, is sentient. He understands things and he can approach problems that he's never had before and deal with them, right? So the fact that they're even arguing his sentience is sort of like, what do you mean? Of course he can understand what he is and stuff like that.
Well, that's how we're able to have these discussions, because it isn't a clear-cut issue. I've tried to make it very clear. That is my opinion on the matter after researching this, by which I mean watching a lot of sci-fi and reading a lot of sci-fi and playing a lot of sci-fi, and then looking at the state of robotics today and in recent history to prepare for this. But that's still only my opinion, the conclusion that I personally have drawn from this. And other people are welcome to draw their own, and that's why we're able to have interesting discussions about, and I'm happy to play devil's advocate also against people who think robots are, or who treat robots more human than I do. You don't have to think robots deserve to be treated equal to human life, and you don't have to think that a robot has to be completely sentient to have rights. I mean, you could argue that a robot that is completely indistinguishable to human from a dog should have all the rights that a dog has.
Like the rebels in The Sims, who will either kill humans in a sense. Like it's no
And that's something I'm to say. I'm not saying like, and like at least in Fallout, they like kill all Sims because they don't matter. But like, if you have to save a human or save a Sim, I mean, it wouldn't be smarter to save a human, or it would be. But the railroad thinks about it, no, Sims can live, we all suck. But we do suck, but Sims can suck too. If you're, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm just rambling.
It's all good.
Railroad sucks.
Yes, Ryan.
Thank you, Jimmy. I think that, the whole, why are people fascinated with androids is really interesting. I think you're partially right. I think that there is the aspect of we need someone that are kind of like our intellectual counterparts. But there's also like the level of kind of the Dr. Frankenstein human ego of we need to be better than God.
Yeah.
We are the smartest things that God made, or we are the smartest things that this universe has created. Let's do better. We can do better. And I think that
Dr. Nugent, step one, be better.
And I think that while Frankenstein had only been better, then lots of things would have gone horribly wrong. The point where you have to start identifying an android as not just a machine, but something that is capable, is definitely sentience. Even before that, like as soon as they can create more of themselves. Like, I know people call it the singularity when robots can make robots better than we can make robots. Because that's kind of how Transformers rolled, where that was unintentional. Where this alien race, the Quintessence, created all the Transformers, but then after they revolted, the Transformers were still fully capable of creating more Transformers. It's complicated.
No, it makes sense.
So yeah,
I mean,
I definitely think that reproduction, like self-replication, is definitely an important factor in.
This is partially my genuine opinion with a little bit of devil's advocate thrown in. Don't we arguably already have robots that make robots? 3D printers. Not just 3D printers. On assembly lines, more and more human parts of assembly lines are being replaced with robots. I mean, I haven't been to a car assembly line in many years, but it's like a school field trip or something when I was little, and they were showing like, yes, and these were called like bumper and blinker. They had car sounding names, and they were robots that like put the windshield on the cars and put other electronics in or something. I don't think it was the bumper.
You put on the headlights.
Why would they do that?
Just for you, Ryan.
No, it was things that needed to be more precisely aligned. It had robots do it because they can do it more precisely than humans. So robots can already assemble certain parts of things better than humans. Also, like manufacturing small electronics. Again, robots can be more precise than humans in some cases.
Well, it's the difference between manufacturing and design. Robots can manufacture robots, but right now we don't quite have the capability of robots to design better robots.
But
we do have computers that can simulate better computers.
I think that is an excellent point. I don't know if that was what Ryan meant, but it's not good. What Ryan said is a robot that can build robots, and I'm just imagining a robot that forever builds a robot building robots. It is all it can do is build more robots. All the humans have died out, and these robots are just building more robot building robots who build more robot building robots until there are no more resources.
No, that's actually exactly what I was going to
No,
respond
okay.
with. While
So
manufacturing is part of it, another part of it is the design of, like, the whole creation process, including design and manufacturing.
Yeah.
We're halfway there, but the design is really what takes kind of like the next level of sentence.
Yeah. Arguably, we have part of that. We just don't have the manufacturing part, the connection from design to manufacturing, because there are people who've run genetic algorithms on like virtual robot bodies to try to see if a simulated robot body can, or if a simulation can design a robot body and then continue optimizing it to make it walk, like make it first able to walk on 2 feet and then make it able to run faster without falling over. It's also really funny to watch the simulations because they start off and they just like, it's effectively watching clock at the beginning. And then over time, they actually get really good. Genetic algorithms, cool stuff. But yeah, so we have computers who are able to optimize designs. We have robots that build robots, so I can see those coming together someday. I don't want that to say, coming this July, but
there's a lot of optimists coming this July.
Robocalypse? But it is something that we have the pieces, and I can see those coming together. Yes.
Another topic is that since they aren't organic, they don't necessarily need all of the things that humans need, and they don't have all of the limitations that humans have. Much in the way that anything that might enhance a human, like any kind of cyborg enhancement or anything like that, theoretically androids could already have those. They could already have the added capacity that human minds don't have, the added memory. They could have added processing that human minds don't have that allow them to work on a completely different level, as we see in her. And maybe even, yeah, I won't spoil her, but that's a
Watch her. If you haven't watched her, and
Watch
you
her
have any
before next
interest in
week, because we're
AI.
talking about her next week.
Oh, yeah, oh, wow. That is very relevant.
Something really cool I want to say about her. It doesn't spoil, it's just a cool detail that people don't notice if they're watching. One of the themes, because of the whole, like, you know, falling in love with AI.
Sorry, can you speak up a bit more just so the laptop picks you up?
Sure. So one of the themes of the movie is like isolation, just because of the way that humans interact more and more with AI and less with humans is one of the things that sort of subtly discussed in the movie. And this was like, it's like almost subconsciously like emphasized, because in the background of all the scenes that are outdoors, all of the extras that are walking around the city are not interacting with any of the extras around them. They're all walking on their own, sometimes talking to themselves, or the AI is with them. They're never together. Which is really
I didn't notice that, but it makes a lot of sense.
And it makes Spike Jones really good.
Spike Jones. Oh.
So it's like,
Oh, thank you for reminding me of another Spike Jones short film that I'm also going to talk about next week. Oh. I think it's called I Am Here or something like that. That's ridiculously good. Oh, anyway. Yeah, that's a great part of her. And there's a lot of low-key, like, social commentary in that movie that's just amazing.
If you're interested in the romance and sci-fi, I mean, obviously we can talk about romance and androids here, but if you want a lot more of that next week, romance and sci-fi. If you want shameless plugs for romance and sci-fi, well, the mission ends in about half an hour, so that's about when you're going to be getting one. But seriously, like, if you haven't seen Taylor's missions before, it's gonna be worth coming to. Yeah.
I wasn't really.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had a hand up.
I don't know. I just thought of this. I was just thinking. You're talking about androids, and I was thinking about Andromon, Digimon, but
okay. I'm sorry. You need to fill me in because I have not watched Digimon in a while.
Digimon is a digital world where it's like all these creatures live in this like digital universe and all that stuff. So like, but like digital universe was created by humans, and you walk into it, and now you have this whole universe of beings. Each one of them is sentient in their own way. It's like mankind didn't realize. And it's all like it's a kids show. You know?
Yeah. No, I've seen the show. I
saw that new movie. Oh, crap.
I've seen some of the show. I just don't know the particular character you were referencing.
What? Digimon.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like there's it's. Sorry, what was your question? Sorry.
What? No, you were starting to talk about something.
Okay.
I was asking you to fill me in on who the character was.
Is Andromon, which would be and they all ended Mon, by the way.
Yeah.
Agumon, Biomon, they all their names are dumb and stupid. You know, whatever. And there's Andromon, which is a human-like giant robot man. It's just like, and he talks like he has like a singular purpose until you start to speak to him, and then he has like an actual personality and stuff like that. So like, it's really. Okay, now it's just like, that's just like thinking about Andromon, I mean, the whole digital world, thinking about that, it's like, in this universe, we basically created an entire second world. In fact, maybe like, there might be space travel, and there's some galaxies or whatever, of creatures that are all sentient in their own way, and like, live in their own thing, they live in their own, have their own lifestyle and culture and everything, and like, we unknowingly created this whole world of it. So like, but like if they were to come out, kids would be like, it's a dinosaur and stuff like that. It's like, but that thing is sentient and created by us. So like, what's our responsibility there? Be responsible.
I mean, it is a kind of interesting question. Like, if we've created an intelligence that only exists within a computer that has no form, but is able to be responsible with a responsibility to it, but also at what point do we consider it intelligent? At what point do we consider it sentient? I kind of made a point about this at the last Androids mission at STAR 2 years ago, and also last ToraCon when I was on a panel with Taylor and some others about artificial intelligence. and I just, I'm not gonna bother doing it right now, but I opened up a terminal and wrote a quick Python script. It was an AI. It was an AI that could feel pain. Whenever you pressed the enter key, it said ow, or it said ouch, or it said please stop that. It begged you to stop pressing the enter key because it conveyed to you through English interjections that it was in pain. I mean, it wasn't actually. I just wrote a bunch of different things it could say when you pressed enter. But to someone who hadn't seen the source code and genuinely thought there was an intelligence in there, it was in pain, and that person might want to stop pressing the enter key. Or on the other hand, it could guilt the person into pressing the enter key by saying, like, please, you need to hold the enter key. Please don't stop pressing the enter key, or something like that. So yeah, if something is just messages on the screen that you can ignore, what responsibility do you have to that versus if it, because yeah, you're right, up to this point we've been talking about things that have physical forms, where if you neglect your humanoid android, it will respond to you like a human, it could respond to you like a human you're ignoring. Well, if it's in your computer, you can just, I'm not going to close that because it's a live stream, but you can just close the lid. Yeah, Chris, I see you. I'll get you next.
There's a fantastic short story. I forget who wrote it, and I forget. Actually, the title is, I think the title is something along the lines of, I don't know, Timmy, playing God seems like a good idea, or something like that.
I don't know, Timmy, playing God doesn't sound like a good idea.
Something. I know it was like a sentence.
The title has me interested.
Yeah, it was a really cool short story. The premise is that there's like, we figured out like, it's like faster than like computing or something like that. Like we figured out something that isn't physically possible, as we know right now. And we used the now infinite computing power we have to simulate a universe, and then we turn on, and long story short, we basically become, our universe is in a semi-infinite chain of recursive universes that are influencing one another as they go down. And
insert relevant Rick and Morty reference. Go on.
Basically, my favorite episode, by the way. And it's basically like, if you're, there's a 1 in infinity chance that you're the one at the top, but if you're not, then you can like indirectly influence yourself in a strange way. They explained it better than I could because they actually had multiple pages. But it was really cool, and the idea that like the entire universe is a simulation created by simulation, et cetera, is interesting and really weird.
Yeah.
Being God is a big responsibility, that's what it was.
Being God is a big responsibility. I would be inclined to agree.
Yep. Also, the last question by Isaac Asimov, but that's not as relevant. No, it's something from a culture that powers my brake lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last
question. It also obviously reminded me of the Rick and Morty episode. It also reminded me, I don't know if anyone reads the comic Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal.
Yes.
This was taking more of a poke at religion than science fiction, but the idea that our universe was created by effectively a god as a school project to create a universe, and like, oh, so that's why there's just all these arbitrary things just sort of thrown into the mix. Yeah, he probably got like a C.
No, all the miracles where everything got fixed. That was the one student who wasn't really available at the end realized how shit this was.
We still lost the baking soda volcano.
All right, yeah, Chris. Sorry.
I love these discussions of Android because they always they bring us right back to the questions about consciousness, morality, and I think when we talk about androids, and especially moral androids, we try to think about, okay, if you had to program a robot to be moral, what would you actually tell it to do? And
I think Asimov got it pretty right.
Yeah, the Asimov's 3 laws.
Because there wasn't there one of the stories in iRobot where they effectively realized that a robot following the 3 laws is actually just a pretty good leader, because by following the 3 laws, you become a pretty nice person.
There was an issue of XKCD, which is another webcomic, if you don't know it, somewhat recently, like in the past few months, I think, where it was like why the 3 laws were ordered in such a way. And
Yeah, and showed what would happen if we ordered the 3 laws any other way.
Robot Killscape was the number one response.
Killbot Hellscape.
Yeah, Killbot Hellscape. If basically anytime you prioritize other things over the first law, you end up with a Killbot Hellscape. And if something can take priority over following orders that's not the first law, then you end up with a stalemate of the robot doesn't want to do the thing and it can choose to ignore you.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Chris, go on.
But more interesting is like the 3 laws are great, but they're really limited in the sense they really only go in, like they only face a few limited number of decisions. Like, am I going to follow this human's orders? Am I going to kill this human? Like, they're really like those are a very narrow band of the total amount of decisions that robot could make. Like, am I going to go right or left on the way to this destination? And I think the problem is that when we like to think that all of our decisions are logical, that all of our decisions follow some kind of algorithm inside our brain, and then we kind of like reject it. But the more I've studied it, and like actually part of my psychology class, it's really more emotive. Like we're really more guided by our feelings than our logical minds. And, I think we could never. It would take a lot longer to actually develop a robot that could feel. You know what I mean? Like even when you're describing your Python script example, like people wouldn't want to keep pressing the enter button if something was asking them to please stop, please stop, and thing. Not because they logically think, oh, like I'm actually hurting something and I need logically stop. But because it triggers an emotional response. Hits that switch in your brain where it's like, oh man, something's like in pain, I should stop, even though it's logically.
This brings to mind one of the few things about androids in VLR that I can talk about without talking about anything else. They posed the question of, are people familiar with the Chinese room problem? For people who don't know, the idea is you put someone in a room with the room is full of books. The books are all in Chinese. The person doesn't speak Chinese. Then, after the person's been locked in this room for a while, they slide in a note under the door. The note is written in Chinese. The person doesn't know what it says, but the person has all these books. So he or she goes and sees, oh, this symbol appears next to that symbol, just like it does in this book. And then the response and sort of figures out, okay, so when this is written here, the response is that. So the person writes that response and sends it back. And then another message comes in, and again, the person goes through the books and sees where that particular block of text appears and copies down the next block of characters and sends it back. And effectively has a conversation with whoever's keeping him or her in this room without ever seeing the people, without ever actually knowing the meaning of the messages that were sent in or the messages that he or she sent back out. But as far as the people on the outside are concerned, this person is conversing with them in Chinese.
It's like you're describing Cleverbot.
It's a little bit like Cleverbot. But the larger question is, what if you have a robot that doesn't actually experience emotion, but can perfectly mimic how it has seen, say we give it training data of 1 billion human instances of human and emotional responses to things. And based on that, it figures out how to mimic responses to situations or comments that people make or what have you. It never actually feels anything. It just knows how it thinks it's supposed to respond. Yeah?
I think externally they'd be indistinguishable at first, but I also have something relative to that one.
Yeah.
There was an article I read in, I don't know, it was a magazine, I just forget which, about the guy who, the guy who jailbroke the iPhone. He was at RIT for a while.
Yeah. I don't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He recently spend just a month making his own self-driving car in his garage, and
Yeah.
it works supposedly better than the Tesla AI that they're working on and like the Google AI and that kind of stuff.
Debatable, but yes, it works surprisingly well for a guy on his own in his garage.
The AI method that he used was essentially machine learning, where it was an interview with him, and he was talking about just how reliable it is and how that'll be the way of teaching things. Because if-then statements are really limited. If you just give a computer a million pictures of a chair and then a million pictures without a chair, it'll be able to figure out what a chair is.
Yeah.
Or, for example, in his example, watching him drive and then seeing what he does and doesn't do, and then figuring out on his own, which computers are surprisingly good at. So that, I think, is where the future of AI is going.
Oh, absolutely. Machine learning is in basically any Google product that you use, machine learning is involved somehow. Machine learning is how they've now trained your search suggestions, there are computer-built playlists in Google Music. There's obviously, like, anytime you're doing a voice search, tons of machine learning behind that. It's fascinating how well that works. It's actually funny, one of my flatmates is using machine learning. He got some like free Amazon Cloud credits, and what he's not using for his independent study, he's using on his own time to build effectively an AI that knows his Tinder preferences. He used the Tinder API to pull down like 4,000 profile pictures, told the computer what he would rate them, and then is using that to train a neural network to recognize what he looks for in a Tinder profile picture, and based on that, do the swiping for him.
That's amazing.
And it works. So, like, I don't know how his is turning out, but other things I've done and I've seen with machine learning, it is incredible how well they work. Yeah.
AI messenger to message them for him as well.
I mean, theoretically, with enough training data, you can theoretically teach a neural network anything. There's a certain amount that I mean, this is like where we go outside my range of knowledge, like about actually constructing the neural network, the nodes that actually determine what input generates what output. But to a certain extent, if you have enough training data, you can teach a neural network anything as long as the thing is, for this input, give me an output. We joked about if someone's Twitter feed has a sufficient number of tweets, then you have to, like, over, X thousand tweets, then that is enough to be used as training data for an AI. And you can figure out how to make an AI that tweets like this given user, which is a fun idea. Yeah, Chris?
Is there a situation where your friend dies and everyone's convinced that his spirit's operated like space?
I don't know about that, but jumping back to a show we mentioned earlier, there's an episode of Black Mirror about that. Yeah. About what if you can construct an AI from everything someone posted on social media, and then keep having conversations with people because you use all of everything this person has posted across Facebook, Twitter, what have you, and across conversation to figure out how that person talks and how that person responds to things. And then you can talk to the person. And if that person had recorded video calls or phone calls or did presentations on live streams, you can figure out how that person talked and use machine learning to make to do voice synthesis based on that person's voice. And what if you have a lot of photos of that person from every angle? Well, then you could construct it. We already have the technology. If you can, go around this table here, taking photos from every angle, feed them into an algorithm, and it will construct a 3D model. Now you've got a fully textured, possibly animatable, because we can of course do facial recognition to figure out where the eyes and mouth are. You can animate that model with the synthesized voice, saying things that person would say, And now we get into a really interesting other side of androids that we haven't even touched on.
It's on Netflix.
Is that the plot of Transcendence?
What?
Is that the plot of Transcendence?
I haven't seen Transcendence.
Well, you basically
I
die,
believe
but
that is the idea.
Consciousness is.
I believe that is part of the premise of Transcendence. I didn't watch it because it got bad reviews, so it's further down my queue. I'll watch it at some point, but I believe that was the premise.
Chappie like codes consciousness and uploads it into people basically for.
But that's Chappie focused more on the digitizing consciousness as opposed to learning someone's pattern. Because again, the AI that I just proposed would not actually think like it wouldn't be that person's consciousness. What Chappie is, let's digitize the person's consciousness. That would be effectively the Chinese room all over again. It's for a given input, how would this person react? And you have enough, zettabytes of training data that you can build up over this entire person's life. Let's say this is someone born at a point where the moment this person's on the computer, the person has a Facebook or a Twitter or whatever platform. You have so much training data to learn how this person reacts to things, and to learn how this person's opinions change over time, and potentially continue to evolve that. Okay, yes, 1, 2, sorry.
Yeah, I got one, sorry. So, if you take a purely materialistic look at biology, you would know that people are basically just incredibly complex machines. We take inputs and outputs and we operate on them all day long. So in your Chinese example, you could say that yes, someone who's just passing in and out nodes, they don't really know what the symbols mean, but they just know how to respond in the way that someone would want to.
Yeah.
Like, how far-fetched is it to say that that's just not how we already work? That's not already how our science works.
It's entirely possible. That's how we already work.
Yeah, that's how our works. So basically, that means that if we can get a machine to do that, to essentially just take in an input and provide an appropriate output, then we've already created a consciousness.
Arguably, yes. Right now I'm talking because a bunch of chemicals in my brain processed signals that came from vibrations in my ears and decided that what it heard from you was hearing and what you said were words in English that had a given meaning, and process them in a way that is causing air to move and my vocal cords to vibrate so that I am saying this to you right now. And that's all just a really complicated function that's controlling a lot of mechanical components. Arguably, yeah.
And there's no free will to speak of.
There's no free will. Everything is predetermined. This is the only timeline. Yeah.
First, I'll go like in reverse order of how I want to respond. So the free will thing that you were just talking about, people hypothesize that because of like quantum uncertainties, that like free will can exist, which is really weird, and I don't know enough about it. But just because of like Heisenberg uncertainty, the fact that it could be either one. Anyway, there's yet another great short story about the fact that like human brains are weird. It's called "They're Made Out of Meat." And it's a conversation between two aliens about humans. And like, they're made out of meat. Yeah, it's just meat. Yeah, it's just meat all the way through. Like robots or energy or anything. No, it's just meat. And it's really like, it's hilarious and it's really cool. It's a really cool perspective.
When you said short, it's like a page long.
Yeah.
If you have a chance, I would actually really appreciate it if you could just post those links on the social media event for this mission.
There is a video version.
I think someone made a video out of
Yeah.
it too.
Which really.
Someone's drawing comic of it as well, I think. But
And then the other thing I wanted to say was back on like the thing with like enough Twitter info, you can have training data on the more like mundane and sillier side of like AI that like can learn like Markov chains and stuff like that. There's a fantastic Twitter account called Robo Rosewater that takes training data from the entire Magic the Gathering card library and designs more Magic cards with various levels.
Ryan, finally, an AI companion for you.
I love I love Robo Rosewater so much.
It's so much fun. There's various levels of like AI too. They're the ones that are like really poorly designed. And
Yeah.
like the ones that just don't have that much training, and they're ones that have lots of training. Like
It'd be really interesting to compare that to like an amateur game designer versus someone who works at Wizards.
if you do, the amateur game designer, there's another blog called YMTGCardsmith.tumblr.com where it makes fun of awful card designs that people make. But there's some hilarious stuff on Rosewater that's just like, you may play cards from your hand, is just all the card says. But that's it just says you may play spells from your hand.
There's one, it's whenever a creature becomes unattacked, target opponents gets their library.
What? There's like discard a card or player of your choice.
Sacrifice a player, put a +1/+1 counter.
I mean, some of those just sound like the sorts of filler cards you get in like Dominion, where it's like, yes, I play a +1 card to play a +1 card to play a +1 card to play the thing I actually want to play.
It's like burning cards twice, maybe.
Yeah, I love those combos in Dominion where it's like, yes, I've gone through my entire deck because I just have a draw 1 card, play 1 card, draw 1 card, play 1 card.
Maybe Rosewater, 4 card use humanity. Let's see computers think of fucked up shit.
Teach computers to write cards to me.
What's
I mean,
that 2-card comedy you keep going back and forth on?
I mean,
Village, something else?
it wasn't Village when I played. I don't even remember which expansion I was using. There was one time I got the most epic wombo combo, but I don't remember what expansion it was in.
If you like deck building wombo combos, I highly recommend Star Realms, the game.
Okay. I've heard of it, I haven't played it.
2-player sci-fi deck building, perfect marriage between 3D and Magic, designed by Magic Hall of Famers.
I love this. This is the only place on campus today where the lecturer is getting homework. I need to read multiple short stories and play Star Realms. You should actually, if you have a chance, post links to these things on the Facebook event for this mission, if you can. Anyway, on the subject though of learning from just a large library of training data that's already there, it's kind of interesting. This was originally I don't know how many people here, apart from the ones who've heard way too much about it from me, remember Google Wave. But when that came out, they made a big deal about the spell checker because it was one of the first spell checkers that used AI rather than comparing each word to a dictionary. It's now integrated into Chrome and Google Docs and any other place Google uses its own spell checker. But they trained the AI. They went, wow, how do we teach an AI the English language? Oh wait, we're Google. We've already indexed pretty much all of the internet.
Yeah.
And the upside of this is they had an AI who could understand, if you wrote Iceland is an Iceland, you meant Iceland is an island, not Iceland is an Iceland or island is an island. Or that if you wrote B-E-E-N soup, you meant B-E-A-N, because even though B-E-E-N is a word. But the other side of this is there have been times in Google Docs where it has taken a completely correct sentence and asked if I want to correct it to the slang version of that sentence. But you wrote rolling. Did you mean rollin'? because it's learned that because enough people on the internet have said that, it thinks it's correct.
It converts like all text on a page to like basically robotic slang.
Gazoogle? I don't think that's less AI and more just hard-coded replacement, but it is a lot of fun. And it would be interesting though to see if you could teach an AI, tell an AI that Gazoogled content is English, and then see it try to parse and correct actual English.
Purposely trained him wrong.
But the thing is, that's actually a thing, to intentionally, effectively lie to. It's like the sort of prank you joke about playing on a kid, only you don't feel bad because the AI is not human.
Exactly. What I thought was Google, go to like a show script and Google that.
Done it. Yeah.
Okay, so something to Google reading the entire English language. They have, it's not AI, it's pretty much just a program, automatic character recognition, words, books,
Yeah.
etc.
With like what they're doing with reCAPTCHA to help humans read books or teach the computers to read books.
That, except a lot of the 1950s and 1960s, and a bunch of books previous to that, was because typewriters, more or less, there was no one character on the keyboard, so everyone used L.
Yes.
Instead. And so there's a lot of books that have LL, or 11, and L5, 15, and so on. And because the OCR machine has read so many books where that is true, it doesn't understand 11 properly.
It just forgot how to 11.
And so it might help if someone did a chart on what number occurs most frequently in the English language, and 11 just isn't there. And that's why.
That's really interesting. I would expect it though. I don't know.
They just never told it that.
Yeah, I mean, Google's been working on running books through OCR for years, so I'm not surprised that that predates when they finally built like a larger model of the English language. But I would feel like more recently they would have taught it a bit more about grammatical structure for at least more recent books. But that's still really interesting.
Because we all have one.
Sorry, no, not more recently published books, more recently indexed books. That if you ran it through again today, it would assume this character that looks like that is an L in this context and a 1 in this context. But it's kind of interesting that they didn't give it that training data initially.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting close to the end of the mission. Are there any final points? Yeah, Ryan.
I was looking for a visual gag. This one. Final point.
That's not quite pointy, but I'll allow it. Chris.
How do I know that I'm not an android?
You don't. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you very much for coming. I am going to hand this back over to Ryan Morganlander and the Bridge crew.
Another round of applause for Zach. That was absolutely fantastic. And I'm really excited. Not only has Jenny returned from her meeting, but Joe also returned back from fighting the Robot Masters.
Yeah.
Joe, have you obtained all of their powers?
No, but I did obtain PowerPoint karaoke videos now public on our YouTube channel.
What? Our PowerPoint karaoke videos from earlier this academic year is on YouTube now? Wow, that was so awkward. That was so awkward.
Not scripted at all. Completely organic conversation right there.
Listen, I wanted to say earlier this year, but then I'd be lying. All right, so yes, we're really excited. Come visit our YouTube channel, which is just RIT Star. Joe, can you confirm? Or the name of our YouTube channel?
Kind Adventures at RIT on YouTube. You'll find it.
Hey, and we've got a whole bunch of videos from when we did PowerPoint karaoke, including me being an absolute idiot of myself. But it was a good time. And closing comments, just quick reminders. We're going to be selling Valentine's next week, which on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's going to be some neat Valentines for dirt cheap prices, so give them to people you like.
Actually dirt cheap.
Actually.
Can I pay with dirt?
No.
We'll talk later.
That's just the point.
We've got Deadpool coming up. We're not selling tickets, so don't come to us asking for pre-orders. We highly recommend you go out and buy your own tickets, but please come with us, yes.
What time?
The film is going to be Friday at 8 p.m. We are going to offer transportation. If you meet us Friday at 6:45 p.m. in the SAU by Nathan's, yes.
Tinseltown or?
No, this is Cinemark. It's the close one. Or, no. Regal. Sorry, Regal. I was wrong. And then Jenny's got a couple of closing comments on committees and also Relay for Life.
Okay, Relay for Life, first of all, that's our best for the first hour. We are going to start a relay team, and I will have more information for you next week on that. We've got to get everything set up. Oh, hi, I forgot that was here. Wow,
Hello,
it's tiny.
Internet.
So yeah, we're starting a relay team. I'm getting everything organized with a heck of a lot of information that's been dumped on me in a very short span of time, but by next week we'll have more information, and almost definitely we will have the ability for you guys to sign up and join, and more information on that. And also membership, because I'm the treasurer. Yay! If you want to become a member, talk to me if you aren't already a member, because t-shirts are a thing that are going to be happening soon. And if you get membership and a t-shirt, it's like the same price as just getting a t-shirt, right?
There's a 100-cent difference.
Okay, so it's basically the same price, it's $1 off. But anyway, come talk to me if you're interested. I'm small, but I'm loud, so we can find it.
We're not.
No.
Should have said that.
You're being energetic. It will take you to get.
Okay, another quick thing is to shamelessly plug, Star is going to be at Rubicon. We're going to be running Artemis, which is a really sweet spaceship simulator. Also, this guy is in charge of Rubicon and is going to be doing a lot of cool things, and I'm his lowly assistant who's also going to be doing cool things. So you should definitely come in and check us out. It's going to be February, Friday the 26th to Sunday the 28th. And I think that's everything, so thank you guys all for coming. Thank you, everyone at home, for watching. And we will see you next week when we're talking about romance and sci-fi.
You want to do your part? You want to do your part?
What club do I have?
Never mind.